This month's issue of Meadow Afternoon will settle us down in front of a cosy fireplace, knit something to stay warm, imagine prehistoric caves, and discuss books for the new year. The new year has dawned, bringing along chilly winds in its wake. They sweep energetically around corners and howl in the dead of night. A spray of rain washes over the valley, droplets chasing each other across the sky. Some days we're encased in the clouds, others the sun shines down, bright but lacking the summer's warmth. At this time of year, there comes along an unapologetic and unquenchable desire for a log fire. There is little as comforting or as cosy as a slowly burning fire with its warm glow and soft crackle. It sits in the room, merrily twinkling as the rain drips outside. The winter nights fall quickly now, damp creeping up from the ground, but inside the fire keeps the long evenings warm. There's a family birthday soon, and I have a present to make. Somewhere in my supplies, I have 2 balls of merino wool. They are a really nice, soft, muted purple colour, and I really think she'll like this shade. The pattern I've chosen to make is the Elizabeth Cowl by A Little Knitty. Cowls are usually quite quick to make and are fitting for this time of year. You need a nice woolly accessory for those cold days when your breath turns to smoke and the wind whips at your heels. The pattern I used was straightforward and simple to knit. It started with a seed stitch edge and then moved into the diamond pattern for the body section, repeating that pattern a couple of times before finishing up once more with a seed stitch edge. I really enjoyed the pattern. It was simple enough to be relaxing, but the diamond pattern added a little variation into the rows of stocking net stitch. If you are looking for a quick knit project or a gift idea, I think cowls are a really good option for anyone. A cowl is pretty universal, it's useful, it can go with multiple outfits and styles, it's quick to knit, and it doesn't take too much wool. My 2 balls of worsted merino were plenty, and I even had a bit left over when I was finished. Winter is a perfect time for crafting. It's lovely to settle inside on a cold day with a cosy drink, a good book or a craft project, and simply hibernate. There will be days for working in the garden, days for spending time in the sun, but now it's the moment for hibernation. Spending days resting and recharging in preparation for the warmer months ahead. This is one of the things that I enjoy most about slow living and living in tune with the seasons, or at least trying to do that as much as possible. Nature has seasons for everything, for work and for rest, for being outside and for being indoors. Some of you might remember last November, I introduced the novel that I'm currently working on. It's been a while, so I thought I would give a little update on the progress and share a couple of my research journal pages. If you missed my previous videos, I write mostly historical fiction, and I'm currently working on an Edwardian romance novel set in London in about 1912. The research pages from my journal are of various Victorian and Edwardian household items. There are quite a few domestic scenes in the novel, and I love writing scenes of characters at home doing daily tasks. As I mentioned, the book is set in the late Edwardian time period, but I have cast a wider net when researching the objects, as realistically people would have used items that are 10, 20, 30 years old even in their houses. So I actually don't want to research just the latest cutting edge inventions for the novel. It's much more realistic for my characters to be using things that are 10, 20 years older than the time period of the novel. Back to the novel's progress. In November, I attempted to participate in National Novel Writing Month with a goal of writing 50,000 words in 1 month. In hindsight, this was a bit overly ambitious for me, to say the least. The first half of the month did go well. I was on track with the word count. Things were generally working, although I was having to make quite a few plot adjustments as I went. But that said, I was making good progress. However, I hit 2 stumbling blocks about halfway through. The first of these was a character problem, quite a major one as it turned out, and I took a break from writing so I could sort it out. And then, as soon as I did that, I got ill. It was nothing really bad, and I feel completely better now, but I was not feeling up to writing for about a week, if not more. And at that point, I realised that I would not make the deadline for the National Novel Writing Month Challenge. And I decided I didn't want to go crazy trying to reach that deadline and then end up with a book that's rushed, or wear myself down physically in the progress of rushing to try and meet this deadline. I ended up making the decision to expand my first draft deadline into this year. My total word count for the novel so far is 21,140 words. It's not the 50,000 word goal I had in mind, but I am very glad that I did participate in the National Novel Writing Month Challenge. I now have over 20,000 words that I did not have before, and the story has made a lot of progress. Even though I did not complete the challenge, I want to look on the bright side, and I am pleased with the progress I have made. All in all, I think participating in NaNoWriMo, that's National Novel Writing Month, last year was worth it, and if I ever attempted it again, I think I will have to have a full, complete, rock-solid outline to work from the get-go. Normally for me, that level of outline looks like a 10 to 15,000 word document with every chapter planned or the character development planned. I often go through any major important scenes, plan them out. That's another takeaway from NaNoWriMo for me. Some writers can outline as they go, or just sit down and write and see where it takes them. But I personally really need to have the book worked out before I start any drafting. After having participated in this challenge, it's really just brought home the fact for me that I work best and most smoothly with a really solid outline to begin with. Some of the plot and the character issues I came across during NaNoWriMo were there because I had not had the time to really iron those issues out during the outlining process. All of that said, my current task is to relook at my outline, to fix the major character issues and expand the outline to make it much more detailed. And then, once that's done, I'm going to pick up the writing of the first draft again. That's my novel update for the moment. I will share more about the story and about my progress as I go along in the coming months. I found it really interesting that many of the household objects that are in my journal page today are the same or are very similar in design to ones that we still use today, such as the clothes peg or the feather duster, for example, while other items have been updated to make them more efficient and to adapt to advances in technology. Items such as the iron, for example, we no longer place our irons into the fireplace to heat them or fill them full of hot coals. An item in the collection which I think has fallen out of use in many of our homes are the coal tongs. Back when coal warmed lots of people's houses, especially in a city like London, these would have been a must-have for many households. Essential to the lighting of the log fire are the kindling, little twigs and sticks, balled up newspaper and old cardboard boxes. The cardboard and paper can be saved up from deliveries and groceries, wrapping paper from Christmas and birthdays, all stacked neatly in a box. For the twigs and the sticks, I head outside to collect some. My personal twig of choice are the dried wild fennel stalks. Long and tall, they cover the countryside, green in the spring with fragrant leaves and seeds. By each autumn, the stalks have dried out and make perfect kindling. Growing wild, new fennel stalks appear each year. These sticks are my pick, partly due to how abundantly they grow here, but also how easy they are to break up and gather into bundles. Gloves are important for reaching into the spiky undergrowth, as is a ball of twine to gather up the kindling into bunches. Sometimes I go out with a podcast or audiobook, but most of the time I like to listen to the birds, or the dogs barking in the distance, the echoes of a rooster, a faraway tractor rumbling, or just hear the wind talking to the trees. The flicker of fire is one of mankind's oldest memories, something deeply embedded into the ancestry of us all. Fire brought our ancestors warmth in the cold, light in the dark, and turned raw food into hearty meals. It was fire that eventually enabled them to smelt metal, bake clay, and turn grains of sand into glass. There is perhaps nothing as central to the survival of humans than the spark of a fire. Imagine, if you will, one of the most ancient of shelters, a cave. There was safety from the dark within the walls of stone. The cave of Altamira in northern Spain is one such place. The 270 metres of passages and chambers contain vibrant and beautiful paintings of animals, chiefly bison, deer and horses. The space has been dated back to the Upper Paleolithic period, the earliest paintings sitting at 36,000 years ago, with further evidence for two main stretches of human habitation at 18,500 and 14,000 years ago. The cave was sealed off from the outside world around 13,000 years ago by a rockfall, hiding its contents for countless generations. That is, until 1868, when the cave was rediscovered and studied, although at the time some academics disputed the painting's prehistoric origins, and it took several decades before the artwork was accepted as genuine. Today, the cave is closed to visitors to aid in preserving the paintings. However, a full replica of the cave has been constructed near to the original site so that visitors can get a feel for what the original cave felt like inside. Ash from prehistoric fires have been found in the entrance to the cave, along with flint axes and animal bones. Beyond the cave entrance, twisting into the rock, sat a large chamber, known today as the Polychrome Hall. On the ceilings, bison are painted, rusty red with black horns. They curve and twist themselves across the rock. No natural light could reach this room. The images of the bison were only ever visible in the soft light of a torch, in the flicker of a flame. Storytime, a piece of flash fiction by Ida Williams. Outside, the sun had long set, slipping below the gently curving hills. The darkness had crept once more over the land, and the evil spirits that hid away during the light of day came out to roam once more. Only the light could provide protection. The fire burned brightly in the entrance to the cave, its smoke spiralling upwards. The men were sitting in a circle around the hearth. Some sharpened their axes, while others discussed the next day's hunt. The chief had seen fresh tracks down by the river. It would be a fine day. The red skies had foretold such a thing. Scattered in amongst the men, the women murmured their approval. New hides were desperately needed. The older children were rapidly growing out of their old clothes. In the orange glow, the women deftly sewed the last strips of hide together, patching and mending tears. In the back of the chamber, as the rocks began to press closer together, an old man held a torch aloft, illuminating the rocks above him. "See there," he said to the children who gathered close by. "The mighty bison watch over us. Settle, and I will tell you a story." An instant hush fell amongst them as they settled onto the floor. The old storyteller closed his eyes and waited until the silence was at its deepest. Then, and only then, did he begin. A tale of a mighty hunter grew tall from his words. A man who spent 7 days and 7 nights on the trail of one beast. Through the rain and searing heat he travelled until at last he found the first bison that walked through these lands. Never had the hunter seen such an animal. This was the largest bison to have ever lived. The storyteller looked round at his audience and cast his voice down low. They say that his call shook the very ground and made the trees' leaves fall. Such a beast would feed the tribe for many moons. And the first white flakes were already falling. The mighty hunter picked up his spear. His shot must fly fast and true. But it never did. The children gasped and asked why in a flurry of confused voices. "Ah," continued the old man, "the hunter was the wisest of them all. Let the beast multiply, and there would be plenty to eat for all the tribes in the valley. End the beast now, and they would eat that day, but there would be no more ever again." The hunter put down his spear, and the beast left the valley soon after. The children interrupted once again to ask if the tribe was angry with the hunter. The storyteller nodded gravely and told of the great winter of hunger that befell them. However, he raised his hand towards the paintings. The hunter waited and said nothing. Then, when the grass had grown tall once more and the fish were swimming in the rivers, a deep roar echoed in the valley. The hunter and the tribe heard the roar and rushed out from their cave. The beast had returned, and with him came many others. From that day on, there were always bison for the tribes that lived in the valley. The children looked up at the red-coated animals that floated before them. It was getting late, and their mothers called them to bed in soft voices. Each one dreamt that night of a herd of bison running across the open fields. The end. The longer winter nights have given me extra time to read, and I've stocked up on a few books and some new to me authors. I thought I would share a few of these here today, in case among the selection there are some that you might find interesting as well. I've heard many good things about Bess Streeter Aldrich, and I've picked up 2 of her novels, A Lantern in Her Hand and The Rim of the Prairie. I had never heard of her or read any of her work before, but I know that she's quite a beloved American author, and I'm looking forward to reading her stories. Quite a few of these books have similar cover designs and come from the same publisher. I've discovered a publisher that is reprinting a series of vintage authors, most of whom write vintage romance novels from the 1930s to the 1950s. One of these authors is Marjorie Sharp. I've recently discovered her and I really enjoy her work. She is perhaps best known for her children's book series Miss Bianca, which Disney then turned into the movie The Rescuers. Marjorie Sharp's novels for adults are well written and witty, simple stories but full of interesting characters. I read Rhododendron Pie, her first novel, last summer, and I've since picked up 2 further books of hers, Harlequin House and A Fanfare for Tin Trumpets. I also picked up an Elizabeth Fair novel to try out, and a Susan Scarlett one. Susan Scarlett is the pen name of Noel Strefield. You may have heard of her children's books, the most famous of which is probably Ballet Shoes. I really enjoy simple and relaxing stories, with an array of different characters and wholesome plots, so these vintage romances are very much my cup of tea. Added to the pile was a little novella called The Making of a Marchioness, and a hardbound copy of Anne of Green Gables. I already have a second-hand paperback version of Anne of Green Gables, but I couldn't resist this beautiful copy. I will be sharing my thoughts on some of these novels in upcoming videos. If there's a book you'd particularly like to see discussed in a future issue, then please leave a comment down below. We save the ashes from each and every fire during the winter months. In the spring, these ashes are turned into the garden beds, helping to enrich the soil for the new growing season. Winter blending seamlessly into spring. There is something ancient in the comfort of a log fire. Something deeply embedded into the ancestry of us all. Even in a time when many people don't have fireplaces in their homes, the popularity of online videos playing an endless loop of a log fire highlights the timeless appeal of a warm, flickering flame. Thank you for watching today's episode. If you're new, welcome. My name is Ida. These are inspiration-style videos, with seasonal slow living, short stories, creative projects, history, cooking, and updates for my novels. Think of these videos as a visual magazine coming into your subscription feed twice a month. Feel free to say hello in the comments below, and please consider subscribing so you don't miss the next issue of Meadow Afternoon. Until next time.